Welcome to the month of June, 30 days all about gin, shining a spotlight on craft-made Canadian. Fun facts and proper tastings, live cocktails Friday afternoons. Discover 14 different brands and be influenced by me. Somm4All. That's right, I'm a Somm4All.
Salut tout le monde et bienvenue à la 24e journée de June. Hello everyone and welcome to this 24th day of June, my 30-day salute to gin during the month of June. Now over the course of the month, my taste buds have traveled across this country sampling some of the very creative, innovative and expertly crafted small batch craft distilled Canadian gin that's out there. Yes folks, up here in the Great White North we have a thriving craft gin scene, and from coast to coast our dedicated craft distillers are capturing the world's attention and continue to bring home award after award for their gin. Now, before I talk any more about gin, I do need to ask anyone watching who is not yet of legal age to purchase and or consume alcohol where they live to now say goodbye. And you know, also, this is probably a good time to remind everyone that for any and all products that I've been showcasing throughout June, that I'm not affiliated with any of them, I do not represent them, and I absolutely have not been paid or received any form of compensation for talking about them during June. For me, June is all about opening people up to gin and getting rid of any stigmas and or misconceptions that may be out there. This year in particular has been all about made in Canada gin, as I believe that we have top-notch gin being produced right here, and with the pandemic still going on and having gone on for so long, now more than ever our craft distillers need us to drink and support local. All right, so let's get back to today's showcase, and as some of you may have guessed from my opening line, I'm off to Quebec for a look at and taste of Les Subversifs Victorin gin. Now founded in 2010 by friends Fernando Balthazar and Pascal Gervais, Les Subversifs is one of the very first micro distilleries in Quebec. A groundbreaking feat and a theme that continued right through to their name, their location, their approach, their labeling, and, of course, the gin itself. Let's discuss their name, Les Subversifs, for a little bit. Now in history, the term subversive has been associated with people who broke barriers, created paths, influenced change, essentially kind of did things their way. That's a perfect name for a distillery that doesn't care about so-called rules and whose focus is solely on quality and taste. The distillery itself operates in an 8,000 square foot former church in Sorel-Tracy, certainly a unique spot in and of itself. And while most of the religious artifacts inside have been removed, the confessionals are still in place. You know, for anyone who needs to repent a little, maybe perhaps after a little too much gin. So now let's talk about their bottles a little bit. Rather than go for bright images and fancy scripts, Les Subversifs is instead paying homage to actual subversives from Quebec's deep and storied history. On the bottle of this gin is the image of Brother Victorin, a religious brother, teacher, writer, and avid botanist. His passion and zeal for both science and botany led to the creation of Montreal's botanical gardens, although that wasn't an easy path for Brother Victorin. He fought long and hard for the idea to be both approved by Mayor Camille Hood in 1929 and also for the project to actually proceed, which only happened 2 years later. Brother Victorin loved botany, yes. He also published many papers on the subject and led expeditions. However, he was also keenly interested in science as well and a very proud Quebecois himself. He firmly believed that the spreading of scientific knowledge of Quebec's natural world and the gardens themselves would both serve as a source of pride and inspiration for French Canadians, and persevered, despite he himself being labeled a subversive for his botanical and scientific curiosity. And then, mes amis, there is the gin itself. Produced and distilled in Quebec, it contains a key ingredient that, well, I never would have thought of for a gin, or really for any spirit actually. So what is that key ingredient? Du panais. Parsnip. Yes, the vegetable. And it features prominently in the gin. Now that's certainly different. I recently had the pleasure of chatting with Maxime Gervais, the son of one of the owners of Les Subversifs, and of course, my first question to Max was, why parsnip? I'm sure you get it all the time. Is what was the idea, or what was the inspiration to use something so different for gin?
So the funny part is when we started 10 years ago, we had to buy our all the herbs and the lemon and the peel that goes into the gin making. And the guy that we bought it from was also harvesting parsnip. And he said parsnip has a little sweet side to it if you use it right. So why not put that into your gin? So we tried a couple recipes and we end up doing one that we liked. And we said, let's go forward with this one.
As simple as that.
Simple as that.
So there you have it, folks. Sometimes the reasoning is very, very simple. In his answer, Maxime also touched on sourcing his ingredients, so I asked Max, this time en français, how important it is to use as much local Québécois ingredients as possible. Alors maintenant, Maxime, une question en français. Est-ce important d'utiliser des ingrédients locaux pour montrer le terroir du Québec dans les produits de les subversifs?
C'est sûr que pour nous, les subversifs, on essaye le plus possible d'utiliser que des produits québécois à l'intérieur de nos produits. Donc, toutes les botaniques, le panais, c'est du panais biologique du Québec. Tous nos produits qu'on utilise pour nos crèmes de menthe aussi, ça vient tout du Québec. Donc, dès qu'on décide de faire un produit qui n'est peut-être pas pour les subversifs, donc produire pour quelqu'un d'autre, après ça, eux, ils font ce qu'ils veulent. Mais nous, pour les produits des subversifs, c'est 100% des produits québécois.
Alrighty, so huge focus on including a lot of Quebec in their products, including parsnip. So all that said, right, I know what you're thinking. What's the gin itself like? Okay, so we're going to dive in. First, we're going to calibrate our olfactory senses. We're going to bring the glass up 3 times before we take a big sniff. So 1, 2, 3, now we're ready. So right away on the nose, getting soft pine, some resin, and yes, sweet parsnip does jump right out. Now it's not off-putting at all. Instead, actually, it's very enticing. There's bright citrus notes that come into play, all the while sweet kind of carroty and earthy tones abound all along with some floral hints. I'm now getting some savory herbal aromas as well, with waves of that sweet parsnip and now beetroot coming around again and again. And when I say sweet, it's not sugary sweet, but naturally sweet. Very interesting, really welcoming. You know, I almost can't stop smelling it. Okay, so now time to taste. And we're going to swish that gin around, right? Coat those 5 flavor receptors that are in our palate. Okay, a little bit of weight on the tongue, a little bit of body here, but certainly not heavy by any means. Not quite dry, but not sweet either. More like an off-dry style, or an off-dry gin if that existed. Sweet notes that are coming through, though, they're very natural notes. Citrus and juniper are a bit more up front on the palate than they were on the nose, and that parsnip and carrot notes, you know, they're a little less intense than they were on the nose. Rosemary and thyme and some anise are all coming into play, as well as some woody and some earthy tones. And there's a little lingering warm spice. Just really, really tasty. Overall, I'm very intrigued by this one, and I quite like it. A lot. The nose alone is complex, and I could sit for a while just sniffing and contemplating it. And while the flavor profile is unique, it's very well balanced in my opinion. You know, the sweet factor of the parsnip plays very well off the alcohol, preventing that hot kind of boozy sting that we sometimes find in gin, all the while avoiding a sugary sweetness. The vegetal and earthy type notes add some depth to the gin, while the floral and citrus notes keep everything in tight. If you love craft artisanal spirits, this is an absolute must for you. And if you're someone who thinks that they don't like gin, thinks that you've tried what's out there, forget about that. You absolutely have to try this completely out-of-the-box approach to gin. So, want to know how and where you can find Gin Medi Victorien? Here's Maxime with some international information. And your appeal is not just at the, you know, with the people of Quebec that do know good gin when they taste it. You guys also have some international presence as well.
Absolutely.
You're in Spain, I believe, and you're soon to be somewhere else, or hopefully soon to be somewhere else.
Soon, hopefully in France, but for now, Spain for sure. We're sending a lot of products over there. Our ready-to-drink gin tonic is really popular over there, so we're sending a lot of cases per year. I don't know why, but in Spain they drink a lot of ready-to-drink drinks, and we'll see where it goes after that. But the gin, the maple syrup gin, and the vodka is really popular over there.
So you see, folks, quality gin indeed knows no international boundaries. For those of us here in Canada, you can find Gin Medi Victorien in Quebec at the SAQ, stock number 13876298, $45 for a 750 milliliter bottle, a great price for all that you get from what's in this gin. Now for folks outside of Quebec, Les Subversifs does indeed ship across the country, so check out their website, subversifs.ca, to drop them a line. Now with a gin so unique and so different, I asked Maxime, en français encore, what, if anything, les Subversifs hope that people take away after tasting their gin. En dégustant votre gin, qu'est-ce que vous voulez que les gens retiennent après déguster?
Ben, c'est sûr que nous, on focus sur la douceur du gin. Le panais qui rajoute un petit côté sucré au gin va venir tout adoucir la chaleur des fois que l'alcool peut apporter, ou les botaniques. On essaye d'y aller légèrement sur les botaniques, donc pas trop de cardamome, pas trop d'écorce de citron. Il y a des gins des fois qui peuvent être très forts en botanique. Nous, on veut que ça soit léger, que ça se boit bien. On dit souvent que c'est un gin à déguster sur glace ou straight.
So there you have it, folks. Gin Medi Victorien from Les Subversifs. You know, finding a name for the distillery initially wasn't easy. However, Fernando and Pascal took inspiration from gin itself and how throughout much of history it was considered taboo and forbidden, right, as I've talked about in some of my earlier posts. They wanted to change the established order with what they were doing, embrace the taboo and showcase what they could do, their way with their spirits. A very, some would say, subversive way of thinking. I would say it was a very highly successful one and a tasty one as well. I want to sincerely thank Maxime for being so generous with his time and for all his great information and background on Gin Medi Victorien. And I want to thank you all for tuning in. Merci infiniment. Don't forget to share my posts and to use the hashtag #SipWithSomm4All. Folks, life is too short to drink boring gin, and our craft distillers here in Canada are proving that there's lots to get excited about. As we skip past those big brand international store shelves, we need to make sure that we instead choose to support and drink local. Until next time, stay well, be safe, go Habs go, et santé from Somm4All.